the local let stuff. So at a high level, what we'll do, and keep in mind the entire time we're talking that these are bidding requirements. So the emphasis is going to be placed on, updating the bid doc template and getting the information out to the bidders. The affirmations will be due within 5 days, and the target date for this is any project that is sold after July 1st of this year, of 2016. Now, the caveat to that is, obviously, it's going to be when goals are set on the project. If there's no goals, then there's no DB commitment process. Like I said, for the DB utilization plan, it is 2 parts. The utilization plan at bid time, and then it's affirmations on the back end. But what it allows us to do is get this information at the beginning, and then we kind of have a better picture throughout the life of the project of, what the plan was as far as, and then as far as what DBEs were utilized throughout the life of the project. So again, it's a bidding requirement. The bidder submission will go straight to ODOT for review. We will make sure that any, owners of the project, the locals or the districts have access to the data. But the process is kind of it does run, kind of self-sufficiently because the data comes from the bidder. It comes to ODOT, we do the review. If there are any issues in that process, then we contact the bidder directly because we only have this 5-day window. What to expect, what the impact is. Again, the largest impact on this is on the, it's on the bidders because it's the bidding requirement. We're seeing this shift where historically, we've done a lot of manual maintaining or collecting of information. We're kind of offloading that stuff onto the bidders now. I received the list of first quarter jobs from Andrea and Jeff, and looks like there's only about 14 of them. So we're talking 5 to 7 projects. That's going to be the only impact, or the immediate impact, over until end of September. And then what we'll do for those initial projects is we'll do some extra training, we'll partner with you guys to make sure that there aren't any issues that we need to address with the process. I don't foresee any, but we'll make an extra effort to reach out to you guys and make sure you're comfortable with the process as well as your projects are being filed. I'm going to go through a quick demo. I mean, that's basically the background information. The process itself is pretty simplistic, so it won't take me very long to run through this, and then we can go through any questions that you guys might have. So we've come up with an online form for the bidders to use, and that link to that form will be included in the bid doc template. Again, the data will just come directly to ODOT for processing. Make sure that the bidder meets the goal if there are any issues during that 5-day window. Hold on 1 second. I got to stop sharing one screen and share a different screen. There you go. I got it. Okay, this screen that I'm getting ready to share, you should see the presentation went away, and this web page should pop up on the screen. Okay, so this is a basic, idea of what we're trying to do and a way for us to gather the information that we need to meet this requirement. I do want to pop out 1 second and just kind of show you guys what we use for all of our ODOT-led projects. Again, I'm not trying to focus on that, but I think it's important to at least, give an idea of how we got where we're at. And what I did was we bid all of our ODOT-led projects online, so I was able to build it right into the form for our bidders. But basically, I just emulated that form for the local-led projects. So So here's an example of an online bidding file that we use for our ODOT-led projects, and then I'll just walk you through this process real quick so you can see how it lines up. I think the reason why I feel that this is important is there is definitely some overlap with the bidders that bid ODOT-led projects to local-led projects. So that's why I keep touching on the fact that we've already, done this on the ODOT-led side, because given that it's a bidding requirement, it shouldn't be a big deal for the bidders to get acclimated.
So Tina, if I can interrupt you for a second, when a bidder is getting ready to open this up, will there be a specific link? It's already accessible to the bidders, and they would be able to get on and do that very easily.
Exactly. So basically, this is the one we use for the ODOT-led. So they just go to this DB list, and I'm pointing at my screen, and I realize you guys can't see that. But so basically, all they need to do is type in the the DB that they're going to use. They indicate how they're going to use them, like how much you're going to use them for, and whether or not you're going to use them. Because we have some bidders that they'll submit us all of their DBEs, so they'll say no. So we know if they weren't going to meet the goal at bid time, they submit those as part of their good faith effort. And then add entry, and then it's going to calculate everything up here. So what happens is we download the data from the letting, and we're able to just pull it into the system for evaluation.
Now, so if a contractor has multiple DBEs that they're going to utilize, you would just...
Yeah, I'll add another one.
Okay.
I thought of that after I started to move on. So then, if you want to do a supplier, they only get credit for 60% of that. Same idea. You can have as many as you need to meet the goal. You can see in this case, we blew away the goal. So to switch over to the idea for the local-led projects, basically it's just a web form. So again, we're trying to emulate something because a lot of your, there's not that online bidding component. So in this case, say I wanted to, I'm proposing, and I'm the bidder, I'm the prime, and then the projects will be on this list, and just the general information. I actually don't think we need the address. Oh, that's my home address. Probably don't want that on there. But I don't think we really need the address. So I'll probably just take that off there. So really what this form will do is just you'll put in the name, it'll have a number, and then this is exactly like what I showed you on the ODOT-led side, and it's pre-populated with all the DBEs. So, we have somewhere around 11, don't remember the exact number, 1,100 certified DBEs right now. So, exact same scenario. You enter how you're going to use, whether or not you're going to use them, and the dollar amount. And I think I limited it to 7, just thinking that would be enough. But I'll have some more detailed conversations with Jeff and Andrea and make sure that 7 DBEs would actually cover it. But I don't think we've actually had that many on the ODOT-led side, so I was thinking that would be sufficient. I'll just add a couple more. Form's very simple to use. And same concept. Then I'm going to hit the submit form button, and then basically it's going to get submitted, and then we would log in and download the information. So let's fast forward a little bit to what happens once we get the information. So there's a couple different forms that get used. So what happens is, well, let me back up to the report. So basically the report we have all these reports already established. So I'm going to pull just the ones from our last letting because I just realized that one's not awarded yet. So this is for our April 21st letting. We had like something like 46 projects. So just to give you an example, I mean, your data won't look really much like this because it's going to be one project at a time. Obviously, we're not going to have 40 local let projects on the same day. So in this case, it's All Glaze 95238. You can tell that what the status of the bidder is. These are the prime people that bid. This is what they bid. This is their total total DBE commitment, and then whatever the goal was set as originally, and whether or not they met it. So like you can see in this case, Shelley Company did not at bid time meet their goal. But it's really not too much of an issue because they're not the low bidder. So when we step into the affirmations part of the process, that data, the affirmations are only they're only sent in by the low bidder. So this report will be accessible to you guys and the districts, whoever needs it. We're working on some like push-pull technology too to be able to just deliver that stuff right into your inbox. But I'm still kind of going back and forth with that with Andrea and Jeff. So this is basically the data that you're going to see. Now we do have a more detailed one with that actually breaks down all the subcontractors. They can show you the exact, they use this sub for this dollar amount. So that data will be available to you as well. So in this case, you see Shelley and Sands put up Lionel Construction, Mid-Atlantic, Key Cable, so on and so forth. So basically what happens is when we get this data in, my screen went all wonky. When we get this data in, we match these dollar amounts up with the affirmations. So if there's a difference, then we have to look into what the difference is. Okay, so here's an example of the affirmation form. So basically what happens is, and here's the instructions, and this will be in the proposal note 13 that ends up in the bid doc template. But again, this is actually not going to be accurate, this last line, so this will get taken out. But basically, you complete one form for each DB on the project and then send it to, we have a specific email address, by 5 p.m. on the 5th calendar day.
The contractor,
The bidder, yes.
bidder will affirm
Yes.
with the form. Okay.
Now, a couple of things, I actually have this in my presentation, so I might say this twice, but so this is just generic information about the project, prime, bid amount, all that. I guess where where it starts getting important, well, the whole thing's important, but where it starts getting, that you need to pay close attention is to, the description of work. So we need to know what that DB is going to do. You need to fill out the form in its entirety. That's probably the best piece of advice. And again, this is a bidder. This is not a local. This is the bidder and the DB filling out this form. If they're a trucking company, there's some specific questions about the trucking company that need to be answered. It's the same for a material supply. If they're a material supplier, then there's specific questions that need to be answered.
Can you pop up really quick the what we look for?
The report?
No, the first screen,
sure.
Page 1.
Mm-hmm.
On the left, there's some boxes asking if the work would be performed by the DBE or if it would be subbed out. So you have a DBE and then the DBE wants to sub out more to another DBE, or if that firm is maybe potentially not a DBE. We are asking those questions because in order to count towards the goal, if in the case that the DBE did sub out work, it would have to be to a DBE. Otherwise, that portion of the work to the non-DBE would not count towards the goal. So I just wanted to make that clear, as we did recently add that, and we're hoping that clears up some issues that we found in the field.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Now, again, on the, well, I'll get back to that. So basically, this is the form. It has to be signed by the DBE and then sent back in again within that 5-day period. Now, to take it one step further, basically if for some reason the bidder, quote, gets Lionel, Mid-Atlantic, Key Cable, Twin Rivers, and they want to replace one of those bidders, within that 5-day window, they have to terminate that DBE. They can't just do it without letting them know. So here's an example of the termination form. And we'll have links to these forms in the proposal note.
So one of the questions we have is how can the locals get a copy of this form for their records in the event they're audited?
We could make the forms, the affirmation data available. Well, that was the plan, was to make the affirmation data available. That's one thing I haven't completely worked out is how to get the data back, like things like this. So probably what we'll do is set up some type of portal to get the information back and forth. But yes, that would be available. That should be considered pretty much, in the same vein as these reports, where when we're talking a local-let project, I mean, we're not really the owner. The locals are the owner, so you would ultimately end up with the data. Might be better to answer some of the questions.
Well, Catherine Crosby's asking, in the case that, is this capturing any bids from DBs that aren't being used towards the goal? I believe. Catherine, I believe that's your question.
Yeah, I mean, it can. It depends on whether or not you're going to use them, but really the sole purpose of getting the DBE commitments at bid time is to capture the DBEs that are going to be used to meet the goal. Now, this is kind of like the first domino to fall, like I was going through, the steps that had happened with the ODOT stuff. I mean, as the subcontracts come in, any DBE that works on a project that wasn't submitted at bid time, you will still get rates neutral credit for, and that all gets loaded into the system, and it does the calculating based on whether or not they were a DBE. Hopefully that helps.
I do kind of see Catherine's question. I think she was asking, in the case there's 5 DBs that submit and only 3 of which are being used, would we have access to this information?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes. Yes. That data is there. If they submitted it.
It's being used only, though.
No. We do get a lot of non-use.
Oh, okay.
There's a box on there. Yes, they use them. No, they don't use them. Not everyone uses it, though.
Okay.
Usually we only see that if they're not going to meet the goal. That's about the only time that you see people submitting
Okay.
no's. Sorry. I'm just going to look through the questions real quick. I think it might be
So one of the
easier.
questions is, when does the 5 days start for the process?
So we typically have our bid openings for ODOT-LED on Thursday at 10, and their forms have to be in by the close of business on Tuesday. So it's 5. It runs through the weekend. It's not 5. It's not weekdays. It's 5 calendar days.
Okay. What is the prime? I'm just kind of reading through questions. Is the DBE themselves?
Then what we ask and what we've laid out in the proposal note is that they put in a commitment record for themselves.
Okay.
Not all of them do that, and we catch them when they come in. But we want to know the work that they're self-performing. So say, for example, we get like a BUDS who's going to do 80% of the work because they're not pre-qualified for the other 20%. Then we see one commitment record in there for BUDS that's going to do 80% of the work.
Okay, what if they have a sub that's a DBE and they cannot perform the work and they have to hire somebody else?
That will get caught or should get caught during the affirmation process, and the contractor would be notified that they can't do the work.
Okay, back to the 5 days. What if they can't meet the 5-day time period?
Well, here's, I guess, just because I grew up in contracts as a wee baby ODOTer. Basically, what we do is if we think they're going to meet it, then we can conditionally award it. If there's no way they're going to meet it and we're probably not going to accept their good faith efforts, then we would go to the second bidder.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about DBE is just a small portion of what the local's going to look at when awarding the contract. So
Right.
in the case of trying to make sure that they are in fact the low bidder, that all the other items are in alignment and in compliance with awarding the bid, the DBE is just a portion of that. So it's
Right.
never going to be the only sole issue that you
Right.
award a contract on. It's going to be in conjunction with everything in whole, just like they've always done in the past. And I
Right.
think I just wanted to stress that it's a combination of things, just like we've always done.
Right. So basically what we're going to do is approve the DBE utilization plan, and that would just be another criteria that the local will use to award their project.
So can you explain how the local will be notified of the DBE, that the DBE process is complete and approved so that the district and the local can be informed and they can move forward with awards?
I mean, that communication flow is kind of what we're trying to work out. I talked to Larry earlier this week, and I mean, I guess it really depends on, it could go any way. It could go through the district. It could go directly to the local. I think we kind of still need to negotiate that a little bit, but the reports will be available, so you'll be able to see whether or not we've approved it. So if you're going to award one, you'll absolutely have access to pull up the information to see whether or not it's approved. It's just a matter of whether or not you want to go out and look for it. If you don't want to go out and look for it, then that's why I'm trying to come up with ways to push the information to them.
So here's a question on the 5 days. So if somebody bids on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, the 5 days hits on a Saturday and Sunday. Is it, for clarification for the locals, is it a 5 business day or
It's not a 5 business days.
It's a
So in
5
that
day.
case, I don't really have an answer. I'm going to make a leap here and say we would go to Monday, because clearly we're not going to do it on Sunday.
Okay. So is the local responsible for notifying the prime to submit the forms?
No, it'll be in the bid doc template, and if they don't do it, then to be honest, they can't get the project. I mean, it's a bidding requirement. It's like any other bidding requirement. So the goal here was to come up with a process that really had as minimal of an impact on you guys as possible. We didn't want to make it burdensome for the locals, so we're shifting some of the responsibility of this onto the bidder. I mean, as someone who's dealt with bidding their entire career here, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. If they don't meet the bidding requirements, they don't get the project.
So explain what happens if they don't get approved.
Well, there could be some negotiating back and forth. It's not completely cut and dry, and I think Larry sent you the process. But basically, there will be some going back and forth, like in that 5-day window, if they can't do part of the work that the prime thought they could do. But if it's not, and then there's the whole good faith effort that's taken into consideration. If they're absolutely just not approved and they're rejected, then Larry will reach out to the contractor and notify them, as well as let the local know. That's what we just kind of decided, I thought.
So those, I think we've answered most of the questions that people are typing in. Do you have more that you...
There's a little bit more on the slides. Do you just want to pick up the presentation from there? So,
Was the question about if the DBE throughout or in the middle of the project can't be used any longer? Was that answered? Oh, okay.
okay, I kind of walked through this process like when I was going through the affirmation, but basically, this will be laid out in the proposal note as well, but you complete one form for each DBE on the project. The DBE needs to sign it. You're going to email the affirmations by 5 p.m. on the 5th calendar day after the bid opening. So, I mean, that's pretty much the process. I did see another question.
Yeah, so the question was, what if the bid gets rejected based on the DBE process, and they can't afford the second lowest bidder? They potentially have to seek more funding.
Right. I mean, I guess just to give you guys a little bit of background, we haven't actually had to reject. I mean, I could get some exact numbers and have Andrea send that out to you guys, but we sold probably close to 1,000 projects on the ODOT side, and rejections are less than 1%, probably way less than 1%.
Based on DBE.
Yeah, based on DBE. So I can get you guys some definitive numbers on that, but that has not been an issue, and I don't anticipate that will be an issue.
Okay, I'm Danette Schuler with the Division of Opportunity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And I'll go into a little more detail about some of the items that Tina's already discussed with you, just to give you a broader picture of why we have to do this. And we're happy to be here with you today to try to make you more comfortable with this process. We'll we'll be involved in also some additional training with our own internal LPAs and the LPAs themselves, or I'm sorry, internal LPA managers, and then the locals themselves. So if the goal established by ODOT is not met, the apparent low bidder has to demonstrate good faith efforts at the time of bid. And where before the way that we did that before, and actually you're using now, the bids are received, the apparent low bidder is chosen most of the time, and then the contractor has to submit documentation to meet the goal. Now, those are all done, this is all done up front at the time of bid, and this is how going forward the contractor will submit, they're going to use, as Tina showed you with the forms, and all that information will be gathered at the time of bid.
There's someone typing in the background. Could you please mute your phone? It's distracting for those of us who have very short attention spans.
And that's me.
And me.
Thank you. If everybody could hold on one moment, please. I'm not seeing my notes down below.
So whoever's typing, we can still hear it. Please mute your phone or type quieter.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
My apologies. Okay, so we're on administrative review. Yeah. Okay, so if we don't, if the bid isn't met and it's the low bidder, we will review that and discuss with the bidder what their good faith efforts were. And we could ask for various documentation to establish that. Quotes, phone logs, whatever. That it's just more detail that it's communication that ODOT would have with the bidder. So, okay, so on the termination and replacement of a DBE, and this is really currently the method that you're using. There still needs to be good cause for replacement or termination. The prime contractor has to give written notice to the DBE, and then the DBE actually has time to respond to that termination or replacement notice. And then at the end of that, once that has been done and the DBE has been terminated and or replaced, then the contractor would have to resubmit their DBE utilization plan. So their utilization plan is a living document all through the job. It's what the prime contractor intends to do with the DBEs, and that's our documentation and yours that they are following that plan. So the goal attainment post-award, this is something ODOT monitors throughout the life of the project through our CRL program. On our side of things, so the awarded contractor shall make available on request a copy of all the DBE contracts. And then the awarded contractor would ensure that all the subcontracts and agreements with the DBEs that require subcontract agreements are performed in accordance with the proposal note. The approval of the DBE utilization plan doesn't equal approval of the subcontractors. All that still has to be submitted. So after the goal attainment and then the affirmations, we still, before they go to work, we still need to have the request to sublet and the DBE subcontract agreement submitted. We still need that documentation. Now the LPA is still required to monitor the DBE's performance and ensure that commercially useful function is being performed by the DBE subcontractors as well. So a few of the sanctions and administrative remedies complete DBE utilization plan is not submitted at the time of bid. We consider that a failure to bid.
Right.
And then a failure to submit the affirmations or failure to submit or terminate or substitute forms, we consider that failure to bid.
Non-responsive.
Non-responsive. That's what I'm looking for. Failure to meet the goal or demonstrate good faith efforts, and failure of the prime to carry out proposal note 13. That's a material breach of contract and could result in further sanctions. Now, the failure to meet the goal or demonstrate good faith efforts, that would be evaluated after the project is completed. And this is something that if you monitor throughout the job and you keep records on what is occurring out on the project, we should be able to determine if a commercially useful function was met. With the CAP forms that are currently being used, those would be turned into ODOT at the end of the job, and ODOT would take those and evaluate whether CAP was performed. Failure to demonstrate good faith efforts or to carry out proposal note 13 by the prime. The sanctions could be a written reprimand, liquidated damages, all the way up to debarment. But the factors that would be considered in issuing the sanctions would also include the magnitude and the type of offense, the degree of the contractor's culpability, any steps taken by the contractor to rectify or mitigate the situation would be also taken into consideration. Evidence that the contractor falsified, misrepresented, or withheld information, or repeated failure to adhere to the requirements of the proposal note. One other thing that I didn't see in this, and it should have been in here. Well, it was in Tina's presentation, but we didn't talk about it a lot. The reason why we're doing this is when our DBE program was reviewed by FHWA, they found many deficiencies that needed to be corrected, and it was really why our division was created. The Division of Opportunity, Diversity, and Inclusion didn't exist before last year. So ODOT took the initiative. We entered into a conciliation agreement with FHWA, and we had to promise to, we developed a timeline based on the conciliation agreement, and basically told them we will address all of these issues and fix them. And we have until March of next year to do so. So from the time of entering into the conciliation agreement, which was the end of last June, to now, the clock's been ticking, and we've addressed many items on it. And this is one of the last things that we're doing, is pulling the LPA in with the bidding requirements. And we've been doing this on our side for almost a year to the date. I think we started the new proposal note, 13 went into effect May 29 of 2015. So we've been through this process for almost a year now, and we're confident that anything that needs to be addressed with pulling the locals in, we'll be able to do so.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Questions about them?
We could open it up for them to ask questions verbally if they
Yeah, you guys can ask questions. Just if you're not speaking, please keep your phone muted because the feedback gets a lot to handle. So.
When will President 13 be out for the locals to include in their bid document?
I need to touch base with Jeff and Andrea because I know that some of these projects have been filed or they haven't yet from the first quarter. They have.
Some have.
And then we'll probably have to handle those, individually. And then I would say we just probably need to set a date and get it out to everyone.
We are working on the updates to the bid doc template right now.
Okay. Would you have a date, like some time frame that you want to have that done?
We're hoping to have that done and approved by the end of the month.
Okay.
Lori Brinkman would like to know, the current local let process has the Office of Local Programs agreeing to the local government throwing out the apparent low bid. Will that be required in addition to the affirmation process?
So and Lori, you can take your phone off mute. I think what she's saying is normally when a bid is rejected, our office has authority to approve that bid rejection. And so probably what would happen is if we got into a case where the apparent low bidder does not meet the DBE goal and we need to look at the second lowest bidder, we will work very closely with the district, the local, your office and our office to make a determination as to whether or not a bid needs to be rejected or what the actual solution will be for that. But our standard process is still the same for rejecting a bid. This is just, like I said earlier, a small piece of the whole big picture.
Like an award criteria.
Right.
Any bid rejections will still need to come through the Office of Local Programs for review and approval.
Does that answer your question, Lori?
Yes.
Thank you.
How are the goal percentages determined by ODOT? I know that's a question we got, and maybe, Deborah, if you would like to elaborate on that a little bit for the group.
Sure. There's a goal-setting committee here at ODOT with some internal individuals that have certain subject matter expert abilities and knowledge in certain areas. So we get everyone together before the letting, and we put together, we review each of the projects for the types of work, the percentage of those types of work on the project, and then look at the availability of ready, willing, and able firms to do that work within that particular area. And the determination of the goal is made at that point. We are looking to change that process. Not really necessarily, it's more of an improvement. We want to make sure that we're capturing as much goal as we can as far as availability. But we also have to consider if there's a lot of work in one area that the DBs are going to be really, they're going to be spread thin. So we have to keep that in mind when we're setting these goals too. So looking at what their current workload is and things like that. So we're working on coming up with an improved process. So that is the process right now.
We just yesterday sent out emails to several of the contractors that have done business with us and asked them the area that they would work in, how far they would travel, so to aid the goal setting committee. We're doing a lot of different things trying to figure out, to help them determine, like Deborah said, if they're too saturated in one area or another. So that's just a note because that just literally happened yesterday. I lost track of the days, maybe Monday. So, and we've gotten a lot of responses back from the DBs already of how far they'll travel. So we'll actually have that data available. I mean, if it's of any interest, it's probably more interest to the primes, but if they'll travel to certain counties or what districts that they'll work in.
So we have a question, do projects with EDGE goals need to follow the process? Well, EDGE goals are state-funded projects. DBE goals are federally funded projects, so they are entirely separate and the EDGE process is different than the federal DBE process.
Yeah, so the EDGE process would continue as is, and then this new proposal note would be added to projects with federal dollars. And that the proposal note would have the requirements in that would have to be followed for federally funded projects. There's another question here from Catherine Crosby. How is this different from the current process? Don't they have to submit their participation if the low bidder is short? We work with them to meet the goal. Do one of you want to help clarify how this process is really different from the previous process?
I mean, I guess the biggest difference is the timing of it. So instead of getting it with other documentation, we're getting it the day of the bid opening at bid time. That's the biggest difference.
The way the regs are written, this should have been this way all along. The DBE utilization plan should be submitted at the time of bid, and that's really, and the way it's different is we would pick the parent low bidder and then expect the parent low bidder to meet the DBE goal on paper before we would sign the contract with them. Well, that could either take 5 days or a month.
Or 2 months.
Before, or 2 months, the way that we were letting projects before. Now, that's all done up front. And what we're hoping and what it is cutting down on is bid shopping. That the prime has to tell us who they're going to use, how much, and then 5 days affirmation. It doesn't give much time for them to call, the utilization plan submittal. It doesn't give any leeway to easily change who you're going to use after that. So if you called around for quotes from DBEs to use them on your project, and that's who you put in your plan to use, that's who we expect you to use. That's a major difference from how we used to do it.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, there was a mention of waiver in this question, these questions here, and that is no longer. It was absolutely never supposed to be used, and therefore we are to only use good faith efforts in the case that the goal cannot be met, and that, as was previously discussed, can be provided if you are going after a project. Maybe, again, it's oversaturated, the DBs, you can't get them to enter into a contract with you or participate on that project, then you would just have to provide that documentation of the good faith efforts on what exactly you did to try to meet the goals. And if you are the lowest bidder, then, we would have to evaluate that, but it's not to say that you wouldn't be the parent low bidder and considered to be the awarded contractor. But in the case, throughout the life of, the expectation would be that if we did award you that project short the goal, you would be expected to provide additional good faith efforts throughout the life of the project, and it would be reevaluated at the end of the project to see what you did to try to meet the goal.
The other thing, too, that I didn't say that I should have said when I was talking is we really didn't have to do a lot of training with the contractors on this process. I think I literally did 2 training sessions, that was it. So we can do training as necessary. That's kind of how we handle all of our training. But I don't expect this to be too cumbersome for the bidders.
How about other questions over the phone or either through the chat room?
Something maybe we didn't catch. We're trying to catch as many as we can, but.
Or suggestions or recommendations. This webinar is being recorded today, so we will go back through it and take a look at everything, but we certainly want it to be a two-way exchange of information here today. Tina, why don't you share with them maybe that this is one part of our DBE compliance that we're trying to demonstrate to FHWA, and that on the local let side, we really have been given considerable more time than what was allowed for on the ODOT let side. And so we have been trying to, we've worked with our LPA advisory group, we've had a couple small committees come in, we've talked to the County Engineers Association about this, and we think it's going to be a benefit to the locals and take some burden out of the process for you. But as we move forward, this is just one item that we're going to have to demonstrate compliance in, and as we get closer to the March of 2017, when our full compliance deadline rolls around, there are going to be some other things that we're going to roll out as well, and we'll talk about them more this fall, but I wanted Tina to give you a very brief heads up as to what some of those items may be.
So, like I mentioned, PN13 was the first and not the most complicated one that we did. We thought we could get it done, the easiest. So that was kind of the one we picked to do first. So basically the way the timeline is laid out is we do all these things on the ODOT let side, and then at some point prior to March of 2017, they get done on the ODOT or the local let side. So we did the PN13 in June of last year on ODOT let. Now in July of 2016, we're doing it for local let. In March of this year, so March of 2016, any project sold after March 24th, well, on March 24th or after, is another bidding requirement, and the bidders are required to submit prompt payment entries as well as certified payrolls online. So I don't really know the percentage of overlap from the bidders on the local let side to the ODOT let side. I'm going to make a guess and say it's probably 80 to 90% overlap. So the good thing for the locals is by the time that we've worked out all the kinks in the process, then it's time for us to implement it on the local let side. So we literally, like I said, just implemented prompt payment and certified payrolls on the ODOT let side. So what I've been doing is conducting, really since July of last year, working with contractors to get their payroll systems and get them up and running, submitting their certified payrolls. So these will become bidding requirements for the bidders on the local let side as well. As part of that, in order to verify the subcontract stuff that Danette was talking about, that will be information that we'll be collecting from the bidders as well. So all this information is going to be rolled into the system so we can run the reports for the feds just from one place rather than siloed ODOT let, local let. All the dollars will be in the same location. That's, I guess, the biggie. One of the other big nagging auditing things is with the FHWA Form 1273. We've incorporated that into the prompt payment process. So just to give you a little bit of background of how the prompt payment process works is when the prime contractor is paid, and it doesn't really matter who they're paid by, but when they're paid, they have 10 days to pay their subs. Now, that's nothing we're making up. That's nothing new. That's in the spec book. That's the way it's always been. The requirement is for us to keep track of that. So the current affidavit of subcontractor payment process will go away, and basically a prime contractor will go in, they will enter that they paid a subcontractor, what they paid him and when they paid him. And then the subcontractor will go in and verify that or reject it, basically. As part of that process, they're affirming that they've incorporated the FHWA 1273 into their contract. And we'll be able to, run the reports, create the reports, run the measurables to make sure that, we're on point. From the payroll perspective, the 1391 and 2 reports, those will be automatic because that data will get pulled from the system. apprenticeship information, like all the stuff now that requires a lot of manual overhead to monitor. Prevailing wage is probably the most significant because when the payrolls get loaded into the system, they're automatically checked against the wage decisions. So this data will all be something that we'll just make readily available for the locals. So when you're going through and doing your, contract administration and your oversight, you have it at your fingertips. I mean, that's all I can think of that's coming up. The biggie, obviously, is the prompt payment certified payrolls, but like I said, we will already have it done and pretty much vetted out by the time it's required for local lab projects.
One question that I saw come through from Lori Brinkman was, does this apply a way for crimes to get rid of poor performing DBE subs? Internally here, we are looking at all options to try to improve our program, help to develop, more ready, willing, and able firms for the primes to work with. And one thing that we've kind of talked about internally is, potentially like an evaluation, like the primes would, provide an evaluation of that DBE firm and how they performed, or making it even available to other primes. That's just, discussions internally, but we're trying to improve all around our program. So I just wanted to mention that to Lori.
A couple other minor issues or questions. So District 2 brought up the question, do all local LEP projects have to be evaluated for a goal in the DBE program? The answer is yes. That doesn't necessarily mean that all projects will have a goal, but all projects will be evaluated for consideration and a possible goal. Yes.
Yeah, we have to evaluate each project that has, any federal dollars to see if there's, if it makes sense to add a goal, if there's, ready, willing, and able firms to provide services for that project. So every one of those projects that has federal dollars will hit the goal setting committee.
Okay, other questions before we sign off today?
Who asked the question about the prompt payment? Leo? I'm not sure I understand that one.
We don't have waivers, so,
Well, this is payment.
Unless it's some other kind of waiver.
okay.
Okay, it looks like we have one more question coming through.
And the other thing, too, I'm pretty sure we have all the email addresses of everyone that was online. I'll get those numbers for you on the rejections and have Andrea or Jeff or someone send them out. That way you can, better quantify the impact of this, but it really has been a non-issue on the ODOT side.
All right, Erin Fink. Oh, can ODOT provide standard language to the instruction to bidders section of the local bid documents?
Sure.
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah, and we have pretty detailed manuals on these processes, especially when we get to the prompt payment and the payrolls that obviously we would be able to use for the local ed as well. But yeah, that's not a problem at all.
Sorry we missed your question, Erin. We're trying to catch them all as they come through. Looks like we have one more from Leo.
Now, one thing I can think of, Leo, while you're typing, I'll see if I can read your mind. We do have this affidavit of subcontractor payment process, and that will definitely go away. As soon as this process kicks in, that process will go away.
All right, very good.
Did we hit the question from Catherine again about the paper bids and how, I forget, it's like probably up towards the top, how the LPs accept paper bids and if they would have to do this regardless? They will. The bidder will have to do this regardless.
Exactly. That's why it's going to, like Andrea said, end up being like an award criteria for you guys. We'll give you our recommendation, and then you'll still award the project.
Okay, well, I am not seeing any other questions here. I would like to extend an opportunity to you to either send myself or Tina any questions that you may have. Over the course of time, we are going to be fine-tuning a few items as we move forward. And if you do have recommendations or suggestions, we'd be happy to take those into consideration. We do certainly appreciate your participation on the webinar today and look forward to working with you. Also, please utilize your district LPA manager or DBE compliance officer at the district as a resource with any questions that you may have. We will be holding 2 additional webinars here in the month of May. I believe one is the 19th and the other one is the 31st. So if you feel like you didn't get enough of this today, you're welcome to join us again for another webinar or have your staff participate as well. So thank you again for your participation, and we look forward to this successful implementation of the program.
And just really quick, is Jess providing the forms or on the website or something, all these forms we kind of talked about? Or?
Yeah, so that's a great, thank you for recommending that or suggesting that. We are actually putting together, and that was one of the questions, some procedures, guidance, and forms that will be going out through the districts to the locals about a step-by-step process on this to help support what's already on the website. So again, thank you, and we will be talking to you in the future. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.